Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome Deputy Attorney General Lisa O. Monaco, Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General Benjamin C. Miser, the Director of the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, Hugh T. Clements, Jr., and Senior Counsel to the COPS Director, Shanetta Y. Cutlar. Please remain standing for the singing of the National Anthem by Rhea Walker, Special Assistant to the Chief of Staff, Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Justice.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning. You may be seated. Good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our COPS Director, who brings nearly 40 years of law enforcement service, including over a decade as Chief and Colonel of the Providence Police Department, Director Hugh T. Clements, Jr.
Thank you, Shanetta. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this very special occasion, the celebration of the 30th anniversary of the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, or as those of us who know it and love it call it, the COPS Office. And I want to say, listen, please give all of yourselves a round of applause. I appreciate everything you do every single day. I know you love the work in the field, and this is a celebration of what you've done for the field the last 30 years, so congratulations to this COPS office. I am so happy to see such a large crowd here today, and I think it's a testament to the work of the COPS office over the last 3 decades. It's wonderful to have so many former COPS office employees return for this special event, and I think that says a lot about what this office meant to you. And it's also an honor to have with us friends from law enforcement, from the stakeholder groups, from other government agencies, and our partners and supporters throughout the field. Thank you for taking the time out of what I know are very, very busy schedules to join us for this event. And I am especially grateful to have some very special guests with us. A number of my predecessors, former directors of the COPS office, are here with us today in this front row. And of course, I am honored that our leadership at the Department of Justice is joining us today, and we will hear from them shortly. And I would also like to acknowledge Rosie Hidalgo, head of the Office on Violence Against Women, for joining us today for her ongoing support to this office. As you know, OVW is also celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act, and we were both part of this historic legislation passed 30 years ago. I would also like to acknowledge Brent Cohen, Acting Assistant Attorney General, Office of Justice Programs. U.S. Marshal Service Director Ron Davis is here with us this morning. Director Davis will also be part of the program as he is a former director of the COPS office. Thank you, Ron. I would also like to acknowledge dear friends and colleagues that I've become close with now this past year and a half, but some I've been friendly with for a very long time. Bill Brown, President of the Major County Sheriffs of America, and their Executive Director, Megan Nolan. Jim Birch, Executive Director of the National Policing Institute, along with Fairfax County Chief Kevin Davis. Laura Cooper, Executive Director of the Major City Chiefs Association. NALI President Gina Hawkins and Executive Director Kim Craven. Jeffrey Glover, President of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and Dwayne Crawford, Executive Director. He's everywhere, Dwayne. Domingo Jerez, Director of Programs for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. My good friend, Jim Pasco, Executive Director of the Fraternal Order of Police. Jonathan Thompson, Executive Director of the National Sheriffs Association. And NAPO, Andy Edmiston. Thank you for being here. Great colleagues, great partners to this COPS office, and I consider all of you dear friends. I also want to acknowledge that I believe I hadn't had the opportunity to shake his hand yet this morning, but Ben Tucker from the NYPD is here. He's a former deputy director of this COPS office. He did so much valuable work in this field with the NYPD and this COPS office, so I want to acknowledge your contributions to the field, and thank you for being here. As well, I notice as I look out, I see a dear friend and colleague from much of the work I had done while I was in Providence. I had no idea that he had been invited, and well, I know he's invited because he's a past employee of the COPS office, but he was aligned at the hip with me with the work that I did in Providence. Sean Verano, thank you for being here. I see you. I didn't know you were coming. So many of you worked on the bill that created this agency back in 1994, and we're thankful for your work back then and so happy you're here celebrating with us today. My relationships with the COPS office goes way back. As I said, I spent 38 years with the Providence Police Department, the last 12 as chief. And the COPS office was a tremendous resource to us over the years. Then when I had the honor of becoming director of this office almost 2 years ago, I got to see firsthand the tremendous commitment and dedication that goes into making this office the success that it is. This milestone that we're celebrating today is not just a testament to the work we have done together, but it's also a reminder of how far we've come in building stronger, safer, and more connected communities across this country. When this office was established in 1994, it was founded on a simple but profound belief that policing is not just enforcing laws, but about building relationships, trust, and collaboration between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Over the 30 years, I believe we have done just that. We have worked tirelessly to improve public safety by fostering trust and mutual respect between law enforcement and the public. But this anniversary isn't just a celebration of our work, it's a chance to recognize and thank the many supporters, partners, and champions who have taken this journey with us. First, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to the law enforcement agencies and officers across this country who have embraced community policing and made it part of their daily work. I thank them for their work every single shift, every single day. Law enforcement's commitment to building bridges, reducing crime, and creating safer neighborhoods has been the driving force behind our success. Thank you. I also want to thank the community leaders and community members who have worked with us over the years. Without the support of the community, none of this would work, and we know that. True public safety is built through collaboration, and the input from the community has been critical to help us understand and respond to the unique needs of each community. The support of local, state, and federal officials is also critical in order for us to be able to do our work. It's this support that has given us the resources we need to support agencies and communities across the country. And of course, none of this would be possible without the support of the staff of the COPS office, both past and present. Your hard work, dedication, and passion has made this office what it is today. Please give yourselves a round of applause. You have supported this work through times of change and challenge, ensuring our mission remains at the forefront of policing in America. I could not be more proud of the work you have done and you do every single day. My deepest thanks. We also could not do the work we have done without the unwavering support of leadership at the Department of Justice. We are honored that leadership has taken the time out of their tremendously busy schedules to be with us here today to help us mark this special occasion. First, I have the privilege of introducing Deputy Attorney General Lisa O. Monaco. The Deputy Attorney General has been a tireless and steadfast leader in the pursuit of justice and public safety over the years. Her commitment to law enforcement and the rule of law is unwavering, and she has been a staunch advocate for strengthening the relationship between law enforcement and the communities they serve. And as a historical note, she worked for then-Senator Joe Biden when the Violent Crime and Control Act was passed, and he has been a tremendous supporter of the COPS office. She started in that office when she was 16 years old. As you can imagine, she has a number of other commitments today and needs to leave after her remarks. But we are so glad she is able to join us here this morning. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco.
Thank you, Hugh. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's what I'm talking about. It's great to see this hall so full to the brim for such a wonderful occasion. Thank you, Hugh, for that very generous introduction and fairly false introduction when referencing my age. But more importantly, thank you for your leadership. I am so grateful for the work that you and your incredible team do every single day. And I'm honored to welcome everyone here as we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Office on Community-Oriented Policing, or as Hugh rightly mentioned, what is known to its many legions of champions and fans across this country, simply the COPS Office. Now, we're here in the Great Hall where we in the department mark our biggest accomplishments, and today is exactly one of those fitting moments. I am thrilled to be able to welcome so many law enforcement and community partners and champions of the COPS Office and its mission here to the department today. To the leaders from more than a half dozen law enforcement associations, thank you for joining us and for your ongoing incredible partnership. And a special thanks to the former directors of the COPS Office who are here today for this celebration. Thank you and welcome back. Your contributions and your collaboration over the years have been the engine behind the COPS Office success now for 30 years. And it's because of that work that history, I think, will show that the investments made by the COPS Office since 1994 have been a game changer for the communities that we all serve. And after all, that's the model that the COPS Office has been pursuing now for decades. Now, as Hugh noted, it's the season of anniversaries for transformational public safety legislation. Last week, as he mentioned, we marked the 30th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act, a landmark law addressing sexual assault and domestic violence, passed in '94 as part of the same anti-crime legislation that contained the original COPS grants. And as Hugh mentioned, I was very fortunate to be able to have a front row seat to both of these groundbreaking bipartisan achievements in public safety as a young staffer on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And that's where I first met so many of the folks who have made the COPS office possible, leaders who have been steadfast partners ever since. And as an aside, I should say that some of them look exactly as they did 30 years ago. Jim Pasco, you don't look a day over 29. Now, that early experience led me to a career in the law and in public service, and to my first job here in the department a few years later, working as counsel to Attorney General Janet Reno. She was a huge champion of community policing and the COPS office. And in fact, I recall attending one of her last speeches as Attorney General to the IACP, when she said the following, and I quote, "Policing is one of the most difficult and complex professions I know of. It is one of the most important all over the world, for police are the human face, the very essence of government that its citizens see." Now, her words, I think, capture quite well why community policing is so necessary today in our mission to uphold the rule of law, keep our communities safe, and protect civil rights. Because for police to protect our communities, they need to know and have the trust of the communities they serve. And so for the past 3 decades, day and night, year after year, that's what the COPS office has helped its partners do. The office, of course, started big, putting 100,000 new police officers on our streets. And since then, it's invested $20 billion in more than 13,000 law enforcement agencies across the country. Those investments have meant more sworn officers in our communities thanks to the COPS hiring program, more training for officers to build robust partnerships where they work, more resources to keep schools safe, combat the spread of deadly drugs, and improve officer safety and well-being, and more resources to respond to mass violence incidents and to identify lessons learned to prevent future tragedies, like the comprehensive review by the COPS office of the tragedy in Uvalde. Investments like these are more important now, I think, than ever. For the past 3 years, the Justice Department has been executing a comprehensive strategy to reduce violent crime. And it's a strategy that has been rooted in local communities and in local partnerships. And we're seeing promising trends in the form of crimes prevented and lives saved. According to available data from 2023, murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault all show considerable declines from 2022. And in nearly 90 major cities across the country today, violent crime has continued to drop during the first 6 months of this year compared to the same period last year, and that includes a 17% decrease in homicides. Now, when I meet with federal, state, local, and tribal partners across this country, I hear a common refrain. The COPS office is crucial in the effort to keep our communities safe. So over the years, the COPS office has expanded its expertise and its support to our partners. From putting more cops on the beat to advancing school safety, to stopping deadly drugs like fentanyl from devastating our communities, to promoting officer safety and wellness, to providing training and best practices on de-escalation and responding to active shooters and other critical incidents. But through it all, the COPS office purpose has remained constant: to help communities build public safety capacity, and as importantly, to help law enforcement professionals build resilience. Look, being a law enforcement professional is more challenging than ever today. And those who step up to protect us face more and more demands. So in that vein, I'm pleased to announce investments this year by the department to support the well-being of officers, including more than $9 million for the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act program to support access to mental health and wellness services for law enforcement officers. And later this fall, the COPS Office will also award more than $17 million for the Safer Outcomes program, enhancing de-escalation and crisis response training for law enforcement. These are dollars to train officers and mental health workers to de-escalate volatile situations. Look, we've got a lot more to do to ensure every person feels safe in their community, but I'm inspired. I'm inspired by how far we've come, and I'm hopeful about where we're going. So, congratulations to the incredible men and women of the COPS Office and its leadership. Congratulations on a terrific 30 years. Happy anniversary. And here's to 30 more years. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Deputy Attorney General Monaco, for those meaningful words. Now I have the honor of introducing the man I am proud to call my boss, Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General Benjamin C. Miser. Throughout his remarkable career, our acting Associate Attorney General has been a leading voice in the Department of Justice, tackling some of the most complex legal issues facing our nation. He has played a vital role in advancing and protecting the rights of all Americans, while ensuring that law enforcement has the necessary resources to carry out their important work. He has been a wonderful supporter of the COPS Office, day in and day out, and is a true believer in community policing. As you can imagine, our leadership at the department has a number of commitments, and Mr. Miser needs to leave after his remarks. But we're so glad he is able to share his thoughts with us this morning. Please join me in welcoming Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General and my boss here at the department, Benjamin C. Miser.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Hugh. You know, Hugh called me his boss, but we all know Hugh is a boss. So it's such a great privilege to work with Hugh and the team, but I'll say more about that later. It's also an honor to join all of you in marking what is quite a milestone, the 30th anniversary of the COPS Office. Today, we're celebrating 3 decades of dedication, innovation, and partnership to promote safer communities across the country. The last 30 years have seen tremendous changes in policing, and the COPS Office has been at the forefront of many of those changes, working alongside its law enforcement and community partners to transform policing in America. The COPS Office has provided critical resources, training, and support to law enforcement agencies across the country, helping them to implement community policing strategies tailored to the unique needs of each community. Through grants, technical assistance, and research, the COPS Office has empowered law enforcement agencies to engage with their communities, build trust, and work collaboratively to solve problems. And at all times, the office has worked to make sure that the community is at the table, that community policing is not just a slogan, it's a practice. Over these past 30 years, the COPS Office has continued to build on the programs that have been successful, while simultaneously developing new programs that are responding to the ever-evolving demands and needs of the field. In addition to the awards that the Deputy Attorney General just announced, I'd like to announce several other awards that we are happily making today. First, we're awarding almost $14 million in microgrants and other community policing development products and services. Those microgrants are a particularly popular program, allowing agencies to try out new and promising programs or projects aimed toward goals like advancing crime fighting, increasing community engagement, or supporting organizational change. We are also awarding over $4.2 million for promoting access to crisis intervention teams, which provide funding to embed behavioral or mental health professionals within law enforcement agencies. I'm also happy to announce we'll be awarding $6.6 million for our accreditation program, which supports the efforts of police departments and sheriff's agencies that want to obtain accreditation by independent credentialing bodies. Independent accreditation can provide a community with reassurance that their law enforcement agency's policies and practices have met the standards pre-established by an accrediting agency. Finally, we are awarding $7.5 million for what has become one of the COPS Office's signature programs, Collaborative Reform. Collaborative Reform covers a wide range of assistance to law enforcement agencies and communities across the country. It ranges from conducting an in-depth analysis of an agency's police policies and procedures, or providing guidance when there's a critical incident or a major need that would benefit from expert engagement, to offering peer support, training, or a wide variety of other resources on a broad array of topics. One of the hallmarks of the COPS Office has been its ability to adapt and innovate in response to evolving challenges, from addressing the opioid epidemic and promoting officer safety and wellness, to advancing the use of technology in policing and supporting the implementation of evidence-based practices. The COPS Office has consistently been a leader in driving positive change in law enforcement. In its earlier years, the COPS Office developed a network of regional community policing institutes, many of which have transformed into centers of training that continue to serve the field. A number of them are also part of the current network of de-escalation training centers and tolerance, diversity, and anti-bias training providers, which offer DOJ-approved training and train the trainer programs to agencies throughout the country at no charge. And the COPS Office maintains the largest online library devoted to community policing. Once again, all is available at no charge to the folks who need it. As we celebrate the achievements of the last 30 years, and there's a lot to be proud of, we know that the work of the COPS Office is far from done. The challenges we face today, from continuing to work to reduce violent crime, to emphasizing the need for greater community police accountability, require us to continue evolving and adapting our approaches. We must continue to invest in community policing, support innovative solutions, and ensure that our law enforcement officers and agencies have the tools and resources they need to serve all communities with integrity and respect. Before I close, I would like to again thank Hugh for his friendship to me and excellent leadership of the COPS team. I meet regularly not only with Hugh, but with Rob and Shanetta and Corey and Shannon, and can assure you that they are working themselves to the bone to support this office and support the office's mission. I want to also thank the entire COPS Office staff, both past and present, for your dedication to the advancement of the principles of community policing. I am glad that so many of you are able to join us today. It's also a pleasure to see so many of our law enforcement stakeholder partners here. We know that without you, we wouldn't have all of these wonderful stories and accomplishments to share and successes to point to. I look forward to a bright future of service, innovation, and partnership together. Thank you.
We're off to a great start. Really appreciate you all being here. At this time, I really want to thank Director Clements, Deputy Attorney General Monaco and Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General Ben Miser for their remarks. It really gets to the heart of why we're here today. And it is also now a time, as you see these gentlemen lining up, that we get to acknowledge the former COPS directors that have been appointed, 4 of whom are joining us today. And so first we are going to start with the first COPS director, Director Joseph Brand, who served from 1994 to 1999. Director Carl Peed, who served from 2001 to 2009. Director Ronald Davis, who served from 2013 to 2017. Director Phil Keith, who served from 2018 to 2021. And we'd also like to acknowledge Director Thomas Frazier, who served from 1999 to 2001. And Director Barney Malekian, who served from 2009 to 2013. They wanted to be here with you today to see you all, but they weren't able to be here physically, but I have it on very good authority that they are watching us virtually. So if we can give them a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, the directors of the COPS office. Director Clements has a special presentation for each of the COPS directors. He is giving each one a specially designed lapel pin and a certificate that reads as follows. The COPS office honors each director for exemplary service at the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Your unwavering dedication, visionary leadership, and commitment to fostering strong community relationships have profoundly impacted and enriched our organization and the communities we serve. Your devotion to building trust and mutual respect between police and communities have set a benchmark of excellence and greatly advanced the practice of community policing by the nation's state, local, tribal law enforcement agencies. Presented this 17th day of September, 2024. Presented to Director Phil Keith. Presented to Director Ronald Davis. Presented to Director Carl Peed. Presented to Director Joseph Brand. And Director Frazier and Malekian, we will make sure that you get your certificate and your pins, sirs. They will be in the mail to you shortly. We now ask at this time that you direct your attention to the monitors for a special video presentation.
The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 introduced an innovative, unique office to the country, specifically to advance community policing and reduce crime in state, local, tribal, and territorial communities. The Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, better known as the COPS Office, became the first component of the U.S. Department of Justice dedicated solely to serving the needs of law enforcement to reduce crime and maintain public safety.
The COPS Office initial goal was simple: to put 100,000 more officers on the streets, and in so doing, to reduce crime. In addition, the office promised to offer training, technical assistance, and other resources to help support law enforcement agencies across the country and engage the community.
Within 5 years, the COPS Office fulfilled its initial pledge by awarding federal funds to support the hiring of 100,000 new officers, deputies, and troopers. To date, the COPS Office has been appropriated more than $20 billion to advance community policing. including grants awarded to more than 13,000 state, local, territorial, and tribal law enforcement agencies to fund the hiring and redeployment of approximately 138,000 officers.
Not only does the COPS Office fund the hiring and rehiring of law enforcement professionals through direct programs like the COPS Hiring Program, but it also funds a number of other initiatives, including training, technical assistance, publications, and other resources to advance the practice of community policing and strengthening our community's public safety.
Through the years, the COPS Office has become the go-to resource for law enforcement agencies across the country and continues to listen to the field and provide the resources needed to reduce crime and build trust between law enforcement and the community served. It is the only component in the DOJ that has policing in its name, which reinforces its stature in the department as a vital component responsible for the law enforcement portfolio.
Community policing has never been more important than it is today, as it supports public safety by encouraging all stakeholders to work together. It is those efforts that strengthen our nation's ability to maintain safe and thriving communities.
While we have accomplished a tremendous amount, there is much work that remains, and the COPS Office is excited to continue to play a critical role for law enforcement. With the tremendous support of our law enforcement stakeholders, as well as our congressional support, the COPS Office continues to serve the needs of law enforcement across the country. Supporting law enforcement is our mission. We are proud of the ways we have done that and excited about what we will accomplish in the years to come. The important integral word is trust, building that foundation with partnerships and relationships in the community, all in the efforts of solving problems in our communities. There are problems in communities all across the country, and there are nuances in each community throughout this country, but it's up to the local police departments and police officers to solve problems for the people they serve.
I think the thing that sticks with me most of all was the staff. People who were just absolutely dedicated, highly professional, dedicated, responsive. The notion of customer service was paramount. What I can say is now, even 30 years later, I still hear from our colleagues out there in the law enforcement community who acknowledge the work, the benefits that they derive from the COPS funding and the interactions they had with staff. You have done a phenomenal job. Your accomplishments have just been tremendous across the country, and it's greatly appreciated.
I think my best memories are twofold. I had an incredible group of employees to work with here. The other thing that was good about my tenure here was I had the continuity of leadership with great deputies that stayed my entire tenure. They were very important in providing any successes that I might take credit for. And the COPS Office, because of our ability to award grants and bring people together to solve issues, we were able to bring people together to try to solve those problems throughout the country.
We continually re-emphasize the three principles of community policing: building relationships, solving problems, and bringing about cultural change. And I'm honored to have been part of it, and I'm honored to have been to have the opportunity to work with the dedicated staff of the COPS Office. It was my honor to spend nearly 4 years working with the dedicated men and women of the COPS Office and the Department of Justice as a whole. It was my privilege to be there, and I wish you all the best of luck going forward. And again, congratulations on 30 years.
I remember working in the COPS Office. The first thing that stood out to me during my time there was just the tremendous capacity, professionalism, creativity of the men and women that make up the office. The impact for 30 years is immeasurable. It is outstanding, and I look forward to you to continue to keep up the outstanding work and to help us still keep achieving higher and higher levels of community policing, community engagement, and professional law enforcement. So thank you for that, and thank you ahead of time for what you're going to do for the next 30 years.
The accomplishments that we achieved in the COPS Office is certainly continuation of great practices on doing research and working with the field. But we funded more than 13,000 law enforcement agencies. And when you think about that, 13 out of 18,000, that's a high percentage of agencies that we have helped over the years. It's been a great ride, great 30 years, and COPS Office has done so much to change the face of law enforcement in this country, and it will continue to do so.
So, for 30 years, 30 strong years, the COPS Office has been dedicated to advancing community policing to state, local, territorial, and tribal organizations throughout the country. But it will always be interactions between the human element. It will always be about relationships, interactions, partnerships, in solving problems in our communities and building those relationships and trust. Trust will continue to be the key word and the key portion of the work done by policing in our communities, and building those strong foundations to get the work done. And it's important work. It's an important mission that police officers play in their communities. Congratulations.
I hope you enjoyed that video, and I want to thank each of the people that you saw appear in that video because they were all volunteers who volunteered and stepped up to be in the video, so we want to thank them as well. And there's a, yes, thank you. And I want to ask that you go to our website because that was the ceremony cut. We have full content of the videos, but wanted to be respectful of everyone's time for today. So please go to our website. You will see the full version of the videos and hear from those directors. But at this time, we get the privilege of hearing from our directors. So welcoming back to the stage will be Director Clements and the former directors for a discussion.
So, thank you, and it truly is an honor to lead this conversation from magnificent leaders over the years, some visionaries, some very insightful figures over the years. They've all played roles in their communities as a police executive, a police leader, and then went on to lead this office as director of the COPS office. Very important work. And all during different moments in time, but it remains a critical mission in our communities. And I want this conversation to be open and free-flowing, and I think it can be impactful. The work they have done over the years have been impactful, but their look back and their vision for what is before us in the future. So that being said, I'll open this up. As a former COPS director, hindsight is 20/20. What is the one word that you hope would be part of the COPS office legacy lexicon over the next 30 years? One word do you think will be part of the legacy? And I will start with the original director, Joe Brand.
Thank you, Hugh. First of all, I just want to say, looking out and seeing so many faces, so many individuals I've had the privilege of working with, collaborating with over the years, I am so thankful for you for being here. But most of all, I'm thankful for what you have done. And the one thing that stands out in my mind more than anything is it's the very reason the COPS office was created in the first place. Transformational. What this agency, what this department, the COPS office has done has truly been transformational. It was about advancing a concept, a practice that had evolved at the local level of policing around the country. And it's made a tremendous difference. In fact, I'm just going to jump ahead and say one thing that really strikes me. I don't think enough attention has been devoted to this, particularly by the media. And that is, take a look at what has happened with the crime rate in this country since the establishment of the COPS office, the 1994 Crime Act. Prior to that, I started out in policing in the late 1960s, and we've watched crime increase steadily, consistently over the majority of my career in policing until we established the COPS office. The interesting thing is the agencies that had
been the early leaders in the community policing movement started witnessing and experiencing a reduction in crime before the establishment of the COPS office, but that wasn't happening nationally. With the establishment of the COPS office, the work that you folks have done, we have watched the crime rate drop consistently. And that there's just not enough, we've seen that recently again, but if you take a look at the crime data, follow it. It's fascinating to look at. And there is a direct, in my view, there's a direct correlation between that and the establishment of the COPS office. Now, that said, the COPS office, not only did it advance and transform the nature of policing in this country, it transformed the grant-making process. We were told that you could not do what we did. Literally, one-page grant application forms. So as somebody who wrote grants, applied for grants, it was so frustrating to spend weeks, if not months, working on a grant application, only to be told you're not going to get it. We were able to turn that process around and change that completely. That's thanks to the staff, and then what you did in the way of literally in the matter of weeks and months, rolling out grants and getting this funding to agencies helped accelerate all of this. So it's changing the culture, it's transforming the culture of grant making, helping agencies transform their own organizations, and frankly, the principles, the practices, the things that have been espoused, all the programs, the activities that the agency has been doing over the subsequent years have really helped law enforcement agencies transform the culture of their own organizations internally, because transformation is the key. You have to transform the management structure, the philosophy, the things that drive community policing in the first place. And that's what I hope will continue to drive this, the COPS office. And I think it has done a phenomenal job of adapting as the years have gone by to the circumstances that we're dealing with. Each of my successors to date have dealt with these same kinds of issues and continue to advance that.
Thank you, Director Brand. And I will tell you, to this day, we still use that word in all of our writings, all of our publications, all of our remarks. The work we do continues to be transformational every single day as we move forward. Director Pete, what is the one word that you think should be part of the legacy going forward for the COPS office?
Well, I'd like to first by saying, acknowledging Joe Brand as the beginning of the agency and starting the agency, making it a startup federal agency. It had to be a difficult task, but along with what he's saying about the employees, he assembled a great group of employees. So many are still there today and have served in leadership roles, and some have moved on into more leadership roles throughout the Department of Justice or throughout the Department of Homeland Security. So, and as a testament to that is the fact that at least 3 of the people that I know served as acting directors in between our service, and they did it without the agency sometimes missing a beat. So the acting directors deserve a great deal of credit. Now, if I had to choose a word to describe what I think the COPS office did in my tenure there, I've used the word relevant. I think the COPS office needed to be relevant in the conversation following 9/11. I came on board 9/4. 9/11 occurred 1 week later. The first thing I did was call a meeting in my office on September the 12th of our command staff, as well as we had a number of retired military, retired law enforcement officers in our group. I had a meeting. It was a roundtable discussion, and I asked them, what can we do now that we know that 9/11 just occurred? And their answer was, we need to do what we do best, which is make grants. And so that's what we did. The second thing that we did to remain relevant is we called a meeting with the Police Foundation. Jim Bierman is here. We had a meeting with the Police Foundation where we had about 200 people. The conversation was all about 9/11. This was about 2 weeks or 3 weeks afterwards. And I will never forget the message to me with Chuck Ramsey standing up in the middle of the room at the end of at the conclusion of the meeting saying, community policing is more important today than it was before 9/11. So I think relevancy, where the COPS office remained relevant in the conversation following 9/11. So regardless of the circumstances, we were going to be at the table, we're going to be in those conversations leading that discussion.
Thank you, Director Pete. And relevant, I think it's spot on as well today, everything we do, transformation and relevancy for the work we do. And as well, thank you for applauding the foundation of this organization, the foundational leader, Joe Brand. The work continues every single day. This gentleman to my right has a unique perspective in that he served in the field. He went on to be a police chief of a local department in California. And then he went on to serve in this chair as director of the COPS office. And now he's back in the field at a federal level. So I'm curious as to, Ron, what you think your one word or term is for the legacy of this office.
So good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Oh, there we go. Good morning. I thought about, first I was going to say transformational, and Joe's always the first. And so he took that. So I'm going to go with the word responsiveness or responsive. If you think about it, why that's important is that we need to be, our field should be responsive to the needs of our community. And the COPS office has been for 30 years and will continue to be responsive to the needs of the field so that we can be responsive to the community. And the more we are prepared to respond to the ever-changing environments in which we're operating, I think that's the need of the COPS office. As I sit now in federal law enforcement and today law enforcement, just look at the changes over the last 5 years. Look at the challenges we're facing. Look at the polarization in some of our communities and some of our politics. Look at we were dealing with the issue of crime and violence, and look at some of the challenges we're facing. Everything is about responding to those challenges, responding to the needs of our community, responding to the safety of our officers and our deputies and our agents. And so that one word for me would be responsive, that we continue to be responsive to the field. We had different ways, slogans over the years, but it all came down to our job at the COPS office was to help the field, advance the field, or working closely with those that are closest to the challenge. There's a model that I use inside the Marshal Service when I talk to my deputies and administrative professionals in the field, and I believe this for the last 39 years now, that those closest to the challenge are closest to the solution. And the more we tap into that information, those experiences, that expertise, and I think that's what the COPS office has always been good at, listening to the field, tapping into and letting the field be creative and giving them the space to come up with the solutions necessary to solve these problems. So I just hope we remain being responsive. And I also want to say that to those out here that's part of the COPS office for the last 30 years, a tremendous group of people. I think you keep hearing that from us time and time again. And one of the things I've said, I always get in trouble with this because, coming from local is just the group of professionals, commitment, the intellect, the curiosity, the commitment was unprecedented, unparalleled. Obviously, the Marshal Service is excellent as well, outstanding. But I think in working with these two federal agencies, just the staff at the Department of Justice never ceases to amaze me. So whether you're now still with the family or you moved on, thank you for your outstanding efforts, the things you have done. I would say this, as a former police chief, I counted heavily on the COPS office. The ability to pick up the phone, the ability to pick up a product means everything in the world. And the only way we can survive to have such a decentralized model of policing in the United States. We don't have one national police. We have over 16,000 state and local. And the only way we can do that is through the COPS office, so that an agency with 2 deputies can have the same information as a department with 40,000 officers. If we don't have that, then the quality of law enforcement would be solely dependent on the capacity of the local community. And I think this is one of the key things. So thank you very much.
Well said, Director. The field is changing every single day, so responsive is an important word in the work that we will carry forward. Thank you. My immediate predecessor, right before I came on board, Director Phil Keith, also spent a lot of time in the field, is a great mind, still very engaged in the work in policing in this country. Director Keith, your one word or your one term for the legacy of this great office.
Thank you, Hugh. Good morning. To start off with, the word is service. Humble service within and humble service to the field. I always told staff in the COPS office we can never be so busy that we ever forget the trials and tribulations every day that occurred to the men and women that serve as law enforcement officers and deputies in tribal law enforcement throughout our country. I think it's already been mentioned, but when Joe was the first director and I was a very young police chief, we made a bond with Joe and had him in our hometown, and had it not been for the funding we received from the COPS office in technology and hiring and the available money that was available back in those days, we wouldn't have had the success. I credit the COPS office with a great deal of the success we had. That after our initial grant with the COPS office, our crime rate dropped for 11 consecutive years. And being from the South, where everybody carries a gun, that's saying a lot. So it was a privilege for me to work, to represent the field, to listen, as Ron has said. That's the key to where we go in the future, is listening. And I think one of the greatest things we did during my term was conduct listening sessions with all the assistants of the stakeholder groups. And we met with sheriff's deputies and law enforcement officers throughout the United States to get their firsthand view on what should we be doing, not what we think they should be doing. And we created a great bond. And without the stakeholders and without the leadership in state and local law enforcement, the COPS office wouldn't exist. So we owe a great deal of gratitude, appreciation for all the support that you've provided to the COPS office over the years. But it's like all of the other directors, it was indeed a pleasure. Had a great staff. We didn't always agree, which is okay too, but we had a great staff. We made a lot of progress.
Thank you, Director Keith. A common theme here is the great staff here in the COPS office. When I first took over, they told me, congratulations, you're the new COPS director. You'll be the only cop in the COPS office. But I will tell you that the passion and compassion these people have for the work and the grants and the training and technical assistance and the resources we push forth in the community is unparalleled. They cared deeply about communities around this country. And one of the things we hear often now, speaking of transformational and service and relevancy and responsiveness, is recruitment and retention. It's a big issue. It's a huge challenge in communities around this country with small and rural, mid-sized agencies, large cities, NYPD, LAPD. Some are doing better than others, but it's a huge issue. And I think, you know, we've changed as a profession. I'd love to hear your perspective, so please jump in. Are we looking for a different type of candidate these days to truly be reflective of our communities? Years ago, we did advertise and promote for a service-oriented position, but now it's about engaging and giving back to your community. And at one point, we became a professional model, and we were looking for individuals well-educated with a high IQ. Personally, I think we're looking for individuals with a high EQ, emotional intelligence. Those young men and women, or sometime veteran, who want to truly serve the communities that they're from and have empathy for the community they're about to serve. How do my former directors see the challenge of recruitment retention? I see Ron ready to weigh in.
I'm going to jump in first because as I lead the agency right now, I'm probably the luckiest person in this room, by the way, because I've had the honor now of leading two of the best agencies. I have the best law enforcement agency in the government. Sorry to my sister agencies at the Bureau and ATF, DEA. We love you, but the Marshal Service is the best one to lead. And when I look at the deputies that are coming in as I hire that new generation, it leaves me with such optimism for the future. We're recruiting a generation now that is multicultural generation. Sometimes I wonder if we're getting in their way. That is basically intellectually curious, very smarter than we were. No offense to anybody in the room, myself included. And I think we need to just focus on making sure that we can show when we're recruiting. I think this generation has a few questions that we didn't ask before. One, what is it that you want me to do? What value am I going to bring to my community? How are you going to treat me? can I have the work-life balance? And what are the challenges that I'm going to take on with technology and all the things that go with it? So I think right now, although we are seeing some challenges, we start to see some generation that maybe is not gravitating necessarily to law enforcement. I'm not as worried about that as many are, because I think the more we demonstrate and show the opportunities, what we are about, how we serve the community, I'll think that quality will continue to come. Right now, my agency is us recruiting is not the challenge. If I can get past the hiring process, that's the challenge, that's the side issue. But the recruitment is not, because people want to be a part of something special. So I think the recruiting challenge is more based on the agency's challenges than it is the communities or a new generation.
Interesting. Anyone else?
Personally, I think it's a matter not only of recruitment, but also retention. I think we're losing people in the profession and the industry today that we should not be losing. And in many respects, I think that comes back to leadership, organizational performance, frankly, recognizing that we have to do things differently. I'll go back to the point I was making earlier about policing is transformational. We go through these different eras. Take a look at, I find myself reflecting not only on my tenure in policing and in and around, because I'm still very much engaged in this profession. But I look back over the years, the decades, and I see the evolutions, the stages that we've gone through in policing. And then I found myself years ago thinking on reflecting what preceded us. And sometimes I don't think we do enough to learn from those past experiences. We need to do a better job of that. That means leadership needs to do more on that front. And there's so many things the COPS office is doing today, as example with respect to the focus on wellness, recognizing that this is about being able to retain the people that we're bringing into the profession in the first place. We continue to bring in the best, the brightest people that we possibly can around this country. The screening processes that we have are extraordinary. And frankly, they are tougher. They are more rigorous today than when I came in to this line of work. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I could have gone through today if I had to go through that 55 years ago. I don't know that I could have made it, and I'm being quite honest about that. It is a tougher process today than it's ever been. But I think in addition to rethinking our recruitment strategies and what we're doing and how well we're treating the people in our profession, in our industry, what we can do to help maintain that. I think we also have to think a little bit more creatively about the nature of the job itself, the role. And one thing I've been a big advocate of for years, and I think there's a more pressing need for this today than at any other time, is the need for increased civilianization. There are so many opportunities that we have to bring people in, not necessarily as line-level police officers, but a variety of support roles, activities where people can really help meet the need, the staffing needs. But at the same time, many of those individuals coming into roles such as that of a community service officer, a police service officer, support services, a variety of other areas, they find over time that they have a desire to actually move into being a full-time sworn officer. And I don't think we're doing enough on that front. We just have to be more creative in this process.
Thank you, Joe. I'm getting an indication we have a very special guest coming, but I do want to ask one more quick question. And if we could do this quickly. So the profession is clearly complex, it's dynamic, it's reality TV every single day. That's why there's so many movies, so many television shows about the work in the field. It's a difficult assignment to be a police officer out there. Real quick, if somebody wanted to jump in, what advice would you have for a new police chief, a new sheriff, a young woman or man who wants to get into the field? What advice would you give them in this 21st century?
Well, I've been a long-time believer that law enforcement is the last stop on society's conveyor belt. When other institutions fail, law enforcement is often given the responsibility to take on something that they're not trained to do, but somehow we're the last stop, and so we end up getting that. And when you think about law enforcement, it's fundamentally the most important role that government plays. Without law enforcement, no other institution can exist. And so my advice to a new coming chief or sheriff would be to be patient, make sure you listen, and make sure you know the underground developments that are taking place in your community, and listen to the officers and deputies that work for you. They're the ones that are on the street, and as I mentioned earlier, we can't ever forget the important role they play every day.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you to all these directors. I personally could have sat here for 2 hours and I would have enjoyed this conversation, but unfortunately we have to wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time, more importantly for your meaningful words. Appreciate it. I feel like I'm doing the nightly news. I'm getting the notification. That's a wrap. On to the next. On to the weather. No, seriously, very important, and I'm honored that for our next speaker. It is now my great honor to introduce Attorney General Merrick B. Garland. General Garland has dedicated his career to upholding justice, integrity, and the rule of law. With decades of experience as a federal judge, prosecutor, and the leader of this department, he brings an unparalleled commitment to protecting our nation's safety while safeguarding the rights of all citizens. His leadership at the department has been instrumental in addressing the most pressing challenges facing law enforcement today, from combating violent crime to advancing the collaboration and the trust between law enforcement and the community. And as a point of privilege, personal privilege, I would like to thank General Garland for his amazing remarks last week when he addressed the employees of the Department of Justice. I can tell you it filled me with pride to be a member of this department. Thank you for that, and thank you for your enthusiastic support for this COPS office and this agency. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Attorney General Merrick B. Garland.
Well, coming through the curtains, it feels like a television show or something. Thanks, Hugh, for that generous introduction. Thank you for your leadership of the office. Before we begin, I just want to note the FBI is continuing to investigate the apparent assassination attempt of the former president that occurred on Sunday in Florida. We are grateful that he is safe. The entire Justice Department, including in particular the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, the National Security Division, are all coordinating closely with our local state law enforcement partners on the ground. We will all work together to tirelessly determine accountability in this matter. We will spare no resource in this investigation. It's an honor to be here today as we celebrate 30 years of the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Service. It's fitting that the department is celebrating the COPS office with our community partners, because it is these community partnerships that have made the work of the COPS office possible. Whether you're a current or a former COPS office employee, community member, an advocate, a law enforcement professional, a city, state, local, tribal leader, thank you. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for all you have done to ensure the success of the COPS office for the past 30 years. That success has been built on the concept of community-oriented policing. For this audience, community policing is not a catchphrase. It is not an isolated program or an adjunct unit. It is the foundation of effective public safety. Community policing is based on the idea that public trust is essential to ensuring public safety. It is a model of policing focused on engaging the community as a full partner and ensuring that the safety and civil liberties of every person are protected. And it is a model that the COPS office has worked to perfect for 3 decades. One of the many privileges of having served multiple tours of duty here at the Justice Department is that I'm now getting to celebrate institutions whose births I witnessed. It was during my third term, my third tour of duty at the department, that Congress created the COPS office. That office then had the enormous task to put 100,000 new police officers on the streets, and it succeeded. But the COPS office mission is more expansive than just hitting a target. It sought to give officers access to improved training and technical assistance to support their work, and to play an active role in developing partnerships with the communities they protected. Because so many of you in this room, and so many who came before you, I'm pleased to say that the COPS office has more than lived up to our expectations in 1994. Over the last 3 decades, the office has also awarded grants to more than 13,000 law enforcement agencies across the country through programs that support hiring police officers, advance school safety, combat fentanyl and other drug trafficking, and promote officer safety and wellness. Those numbers look impressive on paper, and they are, but they are more impressive in action. For 30 years, the COPS office has shown us what it looks like when you put the values that underlie community-oriented policing in practice in the field. It looks like police departments across the country that have been able to hire more law enforcement positions to serve and protect their communities. In Georgia, it looks like a county police department hiring enough officers to assign critical personnel to missions like mental health crisis and co-responder teams and community outreach. In Missouri, it looks like a police department that reported that adding just one COPS office-funded officer to focus on community policing produced a 30% decrease in calls for service and an increase in crime solved. In South Dakota, it looks like a school district that it was able to hire a new security specialist with COPS funding. That specialist developed a new safety assessment process that makes school administrators an integral part of a holistic approach to safety and security at their schools. In communities across the country, the work of the COPS office means much-needed resources for law enforcement task forces working on the front lines of the deadly opioid epidemic. From 2019 to 2022, communities that received anti-heroin task force grants from the COPS office reported 141,000 seizures of heroin, 43,000 seizures of fentanyl, and 59,000 arrests or prosecutions for fentanyl as a result of the task force's operations. In addition to partnering with state and local law enforcement through its grants programs, the COPS office has helped put community policing into action through its comprehensive range of technical assistance programs. This means no-cost training programs for police officers across the country on topics like building trust, de-escalation, and officer wellness and safety. This means engaging with communities during some of their most difficult times. In the wake of the horrific shooting at Robb Elementary School, Uvalde's then mayor asked the Justice Department to undertake a critical incident review of the law enforcement response to the shooting. Earlier this year, I traveled to Uvalde and met with some of the families whose loved ones were stolen from them. I told them what our report found, that they and their loved ones deserve better. As a result of the COPS office critical incident review, I was able to tell the Uvalde community that the law enforcement response at Robb Elementary School on May 24th, 2022, and in the hours and days after, was a failure that should not have happened. I was able to tell the community that the victims and survivors should never have been trapped with a shooter for more than an hour as they waited for their rescue. I was able to tell the families of the victims and survivors that they deserve more than incomplete, inaccurate, and conflicting communications about the status of their loved ones, that the community deserved more than misinformation from officials after the attack, and that responding officers in Uvalde, who also lost loved ones, deserve the kind of leadership and training that would have prepared them to do the work that was required. I was able to do this because for over a year, the professionals of the COPS office worked tirelessly to conduct a review that prioritized honoring the Uvalde community and the memories of those whose loved ones were taken from them. The COPS office partnered with law enforcement and trauma and communications experts and examined more than 14,000 pieces of data and communications. They conducted interviews, hundreds, with survivors, family members of victims and survivors, law enforcement, and others with firsthand or expert knowledge of the incident. And they prepared an authoritative accounting of the response that day. In the critical incident review, the COPS office identified cascading failures in response, in training, in communications that made a devastating day worse. The report also made more than 270 recommendations to improve future preparation for and response to mass shootings. As important as the practical lessons outlined in the report were, the COPS office also showed the Uvalde community that they were not alone. The United States Justice Department saw them and the horror that they went through. With that report, the COPS office and the entire Justice Department made a promise to honor the victims and survivors by working with other communities and law enforcement to try to prevent anything like Robb Elementary from happening again. The dedication that the COPS office showed in Uvalde and in the days after in helping many, many other police organizations learn the new strategies is emblematic of the way the office does everything with care, compassion, and a clear-eyed understanding of the importance of community policing. We know that we still have so much more to do to advance the ideals of community policing and to keep communities safe. But I have never been more confident in our ability to do that work together, and this is in large part because of the work that the COPS office has done over the last 30 years. I am so proud of you and of all of the previous directors. Thank you. Today, in celebration of this milestone for the COPS office, I am proud to announce a new round of critical investments that will allow the office to continue to build on its extraordinary work for decades to come. In the coming year, the Justice Department will provide $157 million for 235 departments to hire nearly 1,200 additional police officers to enhance their community policing capacity as part of the COPS hiring program. We will award $73 million to help protect schools through the School Violence Prevention Program and funding under the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. We will award $31 million to meet the most serious needs of law enforcement in tribal nations through the Tribal Resources Grant Program. We will award $46 million to combat the spread of opioids and methamphetamine in our communities, and we will award $10.5 million to help train first responders to counter active shooter threats. These resources will help police departments hire more officers, improve school safety, and earn and build the public's trust. And they will help us continue to turn the tide against violent crime. Last year, we saw an historic drop in homicides nationwide and one of the lowest levels of violent crime in 50 years. And newly released data indicates this trend is continuing. Just 2 weeks ago, the Justice Department's Violent Crime Reduction Steering Committee announced new data from across 88 cities that indicate that violent crime has continued to decline considerably in 2024. That included a further 16.9% drop in murders. 3.5 years ago, the Justice Department launched an ambitious strategy to combat violent crime rooted in exactly the kinds of partnerships that are represented in this room today. I believe deeply in those partnerships. I got my start as a violent crime prosecutor when I served as a line prosecutor in the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. And I very quickly came to understand the success of my cases would depend on earning the trust both of the local police department and of the community we served. In order to effectively prosecute the violent gang members who were terrorizing a public housing community here in Washington, D.C., we needed the families who lived there to trust us, to work with us. We had to promise community members that if they trusted us, we would keep our word to help make their homes safe. This was not a responsibility I took lightly, and I know it is not a responsibility that anyone in this room takes lightly today. It is the core of what we do. As we celebrate 30 years of the Office of Community Policing Services, may we all recommit itself to its mission and to what brought each of us to public service in the first place. The belief that everyone in this country deserves to feel safe and to be safe in their communities. I'm so proud of what the COPS Office has done over the last 30 years. I am so proud of our leader, Hugh, who's done just a terrific job in preserving and enhancing that legacy. May we continue to work together to make the vision of the COPS Office a reality. Thank you so much.
It is now my privilege to speak about the COPS Office staff. And I'd first like to honor those colleagues who have passed away. As many of you know, each year the COPS Office honors the exemplary innovative partnership of community members and a law enforcement agency with the Sutton Award. The Sutton Award is named for L. Anthony Sutton, an early COPS employee known for his commitment to service and the community, who went on to become a law school dean when he was tragically killed. We have since lost other dear colleagues who will forever remain in our hearts. Will you please join me in a moment of silence to honor all whom we have lost? Thank you. So I could talk to you about the COPS Office and how it's organized and the different directorates and the different units, but I'd rather talk about the people. Because behind every action that the COPS Office produces, whether it's a grant, publication, or training, there's a team of people who are working tirelessly to make that happen. Over the past 30 years, the staff at the COPS Office are people who often work long hours and meet short deadlines. They are dedicated, hardworking, and committed. They are constantly supporting evidence-based practices while exploring new ideas and new approaches to advance public safety. As Director Key said earlier, we don't always agree, and that's okay, but we always come together. We come together to advance the mission. Because at the COPS Office, we know that the everyday work is so important that it affects the everyday lives of people across the country. Whether it's building legitimacy and trust, supporting the fight against opioids, advancing school safety, yes, supporting hiring of police officers and deputies, whether the tasks are drafting a solicitation, auditing a grant, developing a program, staffing the customer care line, or ordering supplies and preparing travel vouchers. Every single person is needed and important to advance the mission. And as amazing as each individual person is who has worked at the COPS office and continue to work at the COPS office, we know that collectively, working together, the results have been phenomenal. So at this 30th anniversary celebration, we salute the staff at the COPS office for all you have done, all of the sacrifice and the dedication and the commitment. Thank you and congratulations. So let's do something a little different, a little fun here. So if you are a current COPS staff member, whether it's a contractor or employee, will you please stand? Now, remain on your feet, remain on your feet. If you worked at the COPS office at any time over the past 30 years, will you please stand? Okay, so if you worked at the COPS office for 5 or more years, remain standing. If you worked at the COPS office for 10 or more years, remain standing. If you worked at the COPS office for more than 15 years, remain standing. If you worked at the COPS office for 20 years or more, remain standing. If you worked at the COPS office for 25 years or more, remain standing. Keep standing. If you worked at the COPS office for 26 years or more, keep standing. It's okay, Rob. If you worked at the COPS office 27 years or more, remain standing. If you worked at the COPS office 29 years or going on that 30, remain standing. We had 2 people standing, Laurel Matthews and and Cheryl Thomas. We had 2 people standing, Laurel Matthews and Cheryl Thomas. Thank you for that. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for acknowledging them. We really, really appreciate it. And so now at this time, we are going to move into our second panel for discussion. And welcoming to the stage, we will have Mike David, who works with the COPS office, Priya Sarathi-Jones with the Fines and Fees Justice Center, Kim Craven with the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives, and Linda Schwartz with the National Center for Policing Innovation, and they will be moderated by our very own Shannon Long.
Okay, so that was a really amazing presentation. So we're following that and the AG, and we're before cake. So keep all that in mind as we keep it tight here this afternoon. So thank you. I just want to say thank you all so much for joining us today and being part of this celebration. We really wanted to bring together what we call voices from the field as part of the program, and you all represent a collective of those voices, whether you're a COPS office partner, a grantee, community advocate, or COPS office employee. So for the audience, we're going to spend some time talking about community policing. I'll be asking each of our panelists the same question, but we'll give the audience some background to help set the stage, on the unique perspectives that each one of you bring. So with that, Mike David. Mic drop. You are a member of the COPS Office team and are very involved in the development of some of our key grants, like de-escalation training. Your background is in law enforcement, and you retired as a captain from the East Providence Police Department in Rhode Island. And what I learned recently is that you were actually hired with the police department's first ever COPS Office grant. So, as someone that was hired by COPS funding and now someone that oversees COPS funding, I'd like to ask, what do you think is the key ingredient to advance community policing in the law enforcement field?
Yes, thank you, Shannon. Yes, I was hired with the COPS grant, and now I'm hired by the COPS office, so that should tell everyone I can't get a job without the COPS office, so I appreciate the 30 years that the COPS office has been around. The key ingredient, I think, going forward into the future, it's got to be leadership, right? Because it's leadership that takes the lofty ideals of community policing and makes it practical, makes it so that the men and women on the street can do the work of community policing. That's the role of leadership, and without it, there wouldn't be community policing. We say that community policing is a philosophy, and then we give a badge and a gun to a 21-year-old and tell them, go out and philosophize, right? Go out and implement community policing. But without the leadership setting the organization on a path where that can happen, it just wouldn't happen. And I want to just briefly talk a little bit, we say organizational transformation, but what we've seen in the last 30 years is professional transformation. The profession has transformed. And I gave a talk a while back, and I called it, the community policing movement is dead. Long live community policing. And what I meant by that, I was inspired by the 1994 publication that many of you probably worked on, is Understanding Community Policing by the Community Policing Consortium, published by DOJ. And the first line is, the movement of community policing is growing momentum. Right? And they go out to talk about community policing as a movement, a shift, a transition, a new way of doing things. Well, guess what? That's no longer the case. It was 30 years ago, but it's not in 2024. In 2024, community policing is the primary paradigm of policing. And we need to shift to that now and understand that policing today means community partnerships. It means problem solving, and it means organizational strategies to accomplish those two things. We're no longer moving towards that any more than we're becoming a digitalized society. We're there. It's our job now to take those ideals and make them the norm in policing every day. I truly hope in 10 years we're on this stage and someone's talking about how the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Service has now become the Office of Policing Services, because community-oriented is just redundant.
All right, well, thank you for that. Speaking of community-oriented, I'm going to turn to my colleague, Priya Sarathy-Jones. I want to add that you, too, are a Department of Justice alumni and are now working with the Fines and Fees Justice Center. You're currently the Deputy Executive Director, but will soon be the Co-Executive Director, so congratulations. You're a lawyer by trade and have spent the last 15 years working on criminal and economic justice policy. So, as someone with a community-based advocacy organization with a vast background on criminal justice policy, same question for you. What do you think is the key ingredient to advance community policing in the law enforcement field?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say it's really exciting to be back here in this capacity. I forgot how cold you all keep your buildings. I've been freezing for like 2 hours. But I'm also the daughter of immigrants, so I'm going to not only be here to be in support of this Office's celebration, but I'll be remiss if I don't think about how we can improve, right? And one of the things that comes to mind when you think about this is going back to the fundamentals. Community is in the name of this office. It is the key part of the difference between reactive policing, and policing that is based in and with communities. And as many statistics and things I've heard today about progress, which are all valid and extremely important, the relationship between community and law enforcement has never been as strained as it is right now. The trust in police from communities has never been as low as it is right now. And so what that tells me is we have to go back to the fundamentals of what is the role of law enforcement and community in partnership. And that isn't just going to the community when you need something. It's about building these relationships and building this trust before you need something. And that takes work, and that takes time. You need to know the communities you serve, not from the outside looking in, but sitting next to and with those communities. And when we think about that in our most vulnerable communities, low income, Black, brown, immigrant, it's even lower than the public, regular public's trust in community. So I don't know if you all know this relationship dynamic, but for every one negative experience you have in a relationship, it takes 5 positive ones to correct it. So when you think about that, are you going to get 5 more chances in the community with the person to fix one negative experience? The answer is likely no. So thinking about that, and I put this back as someone who worked in this office and now has a different relationship with this office and works on criminal justice reform now, is that it's the responsibility of all of us to hold that community piece with the accountability it needs. The people who work in this office, this department, and I'm now leading an organization that actually stems from a report here at DOJ, the Ferguson Policing Practices Report. What happens when we get it wrong? Actually, at the core of what happened at Ferguson was the breakdown between law enforcement in the community and how we are using our law enforcement in our community to be debt collectors, to enforce things that are not the role of law enforcement, right? So really going back to the community piece in the name of the office.
All right, well, thank you for that. And as the Deputy Attorney General said, welcome back home. So now I want to turn to Kim Craven. Kim, you are the Executive Director of the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives, as we affectionately call NALI. You are also the Executive Director of the NALI Foundation, and I know that the NALI President, Gina Hawkins, is here with us, so I definitely wanted to acknowledge Ms. Hawkins. And Foundation Board President, I think Dr. Kiernan is here as well. You've been working in this space for over 30 years as an officer, professional staff member, consultant, and now Executive Director of one of our key law enforcement stakeholder associations. And you've also been a COPS Office grantee. So, same question for you. What do you think is the key ingredient to advance community policing in the law enforcement field?
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you, Shannon. Let me just step back, however, away from your question and just reflect for a quick moment. I thought I knew what I would say when I came up here, but through this ceremony today, I was really struck by the fact that I've grown up with this COPS office. I was 8 years in when the COPS office came to be, and I was one of the first grantees, and I'm still a grantee today. So thank you to the gentlemen that were on the stage that helped shape my career, and to the COPS office employees that were always there. And so I think what shapes community policing and our trajectory is something that Director Keith said, and that's service. And the service that the COPS office employees and directors have shown all of us, I think, is what we need to reflect with our communities, and that's that service above self and our connectivity with the communities. And when I think back to what the core principles of the COPS office stands for, community policing, engagement, and the problem solving, if we can put ourselves into the shoes of our community members and always think about how we want to be treated ourselves and how our community members, our family members, would want to be treated, we can turn around those communities that don't have the strongest relationships with our police officers. I am very fortunate where I live in New England that we do have some amazing relationships between our policing community, and because of the work of the COPS office, I've been blessed to work under the grant programs that have helped reach back into communities and enable police and community to sit down and have conversations, have difficult conversations about what's happening in their community, to come together and problem solve and strategize, whether it be around opioids, whether it be around youth crime, whether it be around violent crime, sitting down and developing those relationships prior to the Sentinel events is really what can transform those communities. And I think the ability that the COPS office has had over the years to really listen to us as professionals and to our community members, the fact that it is a simplified process, the micro grants, the ability for the communities to think about the problems that they are having and bring them to the table instead of the federal government telling communities what their problems are. And the perfect example of that is the Collaborative Reform Technical Assistance Center that has helped over 1,300 different communities of all sizes to bring those problems forward and say, this is what we need help with. Please listen to us.
Thank you for that. If I can't figure it out, I'll juggle them, so we'll figure that out. Okay, so last, I shouldn't say last, next before cake. Turning to Linda Schwartz with the National Center for Policing Innovation, NCPI for short. True government work here with all our acronyms. Linda, you two have had a great relationship, long relationship with the COPS office, and your organization was one of the original community policing institutes. And NCPI also hosts our COPS office training portal, which has been a huge success for us. Since the development of this online tool, there have been more than 50,000 people that have registered to use the portal, and now more than 75% of the COPS office training is delivered through this mechanism. So yes, that is a shameless plug for the COPS office training portal, but I have the mic. So Linda, turning to you, same question. What do you think is a key ingredient to advance community policing in the law enforcement field?
Thanks, Shannon. So for the record, that's the first time I've ever been introduced as last before cake. So thanks for that. But you guys heard a lot of people today mention the importance of partnerships. And when we think about partnerships as attached to community policing, I think the first thing that comes to mind is the law enforcement community relationship, courts, victim advocates, you can go on with the list. But I want to pause for a minute and talk about the COPS office and partnerships. I have been here a very long time. We were one of the original RCPIs, and I have worked with the COPS office personally for more than 25 years. And when all of you stood earlier to mark how long you've been here, I was looking around at some familiar faces. And I just want to point out that I cannot count how many different public safety initiatives and training programs we have worked with you side by side on over the years. And the COPS office excels at really being a partner. You do not just provide funding, and you are not just standing up these programs. Every single initiative that NCPI has worked with you on over the years, we have developed friendships, partnerships, and relationships with all of you that have helped us make a difference. So I think the first key ingredient that I want to talk about is something that you already excel at, and that is building the relationships and the partnerships that make a difference. So I would like to thank all of you for that. You are exceptionally good at that, and so please keep it up. The second thing I want to talk about as a key ingredient, and I know cake, so I'm hurrying, but it's a return to the fundamentals. Priya said that a little while ago. You know, over the years, I've watched as the attention has been turned from basic community policing training, and I don't even like that word basic, but from the foundational principles of community policing training towards these specialty topics, right? Critical and emerging issues in public safety, and that's important. But what we see is that the same level of attention is not being paid to communications, to leadership development, to problem solving, to how to build and maintain effective partnerships. And those are the building blocks, and all of you know this, but those are the building blocks for effective policing. Mike said it earlier, it's not about community policing. Community policing is just policing done correctly, right? So I think that that's the key ingredient going forward, is this return to the foundation principles of community policing.
Great, thank you for that. So with that, we're going to wrap. Thank you all. Thank you to the audience for giving us the opportunity to, like I say, hear from the voices from the field. We thought it was very important to have this as part of the program. So thank you for entertaining us and listening. And we will turn back over to Director Clements.
Sorry, you have me one more time. So thank you so much for that discussion. And with this, we actually do have a little bit of a presentation here that's a little bit of a surprise. And so with this, I would like to welcome to the stage the COPS Union President and the leadership there. That would be President Matthew Lizakowski, Jeremy Como-Bernstein, Kamisha Amaker, Tony Morgan-Wheeler, and Melissa Harrington, who have a special presentation for you, sir. They are presenting a plaque that says, "Congratulations to the staff of the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS Office, on 30 years of supporting the law enforcement community. From the members of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME Local 3187. And now the floor is yours. Yes.
Thank you so much to the union and to the workforce of the COPS office, who I think dearly of, and I know the previous directors. I think each and every one of you mentioned this tremendous staff, and it's important because directors come and go, but this staff is the one that drives the mission. So, and I look around the room, there's many previous COPS employees here, one I became very dear with prior to me arriving, and still here during my tenure here. Dean Keeter, thank you for the friendship and welcoming me to DC here when I first came. Appreciate that. So this brings us to a close of a wonderful program, and I hope you'll join me in thanking the wonderful team at the COPS office who have worked tirelessly to put this together, in particular, Shanetta Cutler, Shannon Long, and the entire team, so thank you. This is an amazing milestone, but obviously we aren't stopping here. And the work continues. As evidence of that, you should have found a flyer in your seat announcing our latest publication, American Policing 2054, Advancing Community Policing Over the Next 30 Years. It's an outstanding collection of essays from public safety experts across the country and their thoughts on what policing might look like in the decades to come. In closing, over the last 30 years, we have seen remarkable progress, from the early days of implementing community policing in agencies and communities to finding new and creative ways to better serve the people we work for. One thing has remained consistent: our commitment to building safer and more just communities through trust and collaboration. So as we celebrate the 30th anniversary, let us rededicate ourselves to the core principles that have guided us thus far: trust, partnerships, and service, all words we have heard here today in the panel. Let us continue to work together to build strong, resilient communities where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. I know you're looking forward to the chance to talk with your colleagues from over the last 30 years in the previous directors. So please enjoy the reception we have planned for you in the courtyard, and thank you again for all you have done to make this day possible. This concludes the program.